So some new reporting from the Washington Post is suggesting that Joe Biden and the Democrats are considering a very important addition to the Democratic stimulus package. The $1.9 trillion package may include a new item that permanently reduces child poverty in the United States of America. I want to read you some reporting because this is really important, and none of this is confirmed yet, but the fact that they're considering this shows that there's some potential victories for regular people in the early days of this government. And notes here, under one draft of the plan being discussed, the IRS would be tasked with depositing checks worth $300 every month per child younger than 6, as well as $250 every month per child aged 6 to 17. That would amount to $3,600 over the course of the year for young children and $3,000 a year for older children. Unlike the stimulus checks, the Biden administration and Democratic lawmakers are hoping to make these child benefits a permanent government program that would continue in future years, according to 3 senior Democratic officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss internal planning. The current proposal only calls for the expanded benefit to be enacted for 1 year, after which Democrats widely hope political pressure will force Congress to extend them. The benefit would be phased out for affluent Americans, though the precise income has not yet been determined. The benefit could prove costly, increasing the federal deficit by as much as $120 billion for 1 year, but it could curb child poverty in the U.S. by more than 50%, researchers at Columbia University have found. And I support this. Look, you guys know me. I have been critical of Joe Biden, and I intend to be. He is far too right-wing, and frankly, I still think the United States would have been far better off with Bernie Sanders as president and Bernie Sanders as the Democratic nominee. But as I noted, I will offer good faith criticism of Joe Biden. And when they offer and consider good policy, I'll give it good coverage. And this is good policy. And I speak from the perspective as a Canadian here, where this was recently introduced in the last few years by the Canadian federal government, where they offer basically everyone with a child some amount of money. It scales depending on how much you make. It scales depending on how old the child is. But basically, unless you're very, very, very wealthy, you get some manner of money directly into your bank account once a month, and it's readjusted every year depending on your income over the previous year. And that's how it works. And in Canada, it has absolutely slashed child poverty. Like, it's not the only solution. It's not, because there are a lot of factors to consider. For instance, the very, very poorest, often as it is, that don't have the access to things like media literacy and financial literacy, and they don't have access to people to help them file their taxes, often get left out of these programs. And of course, disproportionately, that affects, low income and racialized people and people that live in isolated communities. So sad as it is in Canada, many of the people that don't get it are poor Indigenous people that live in the north and that live in isolated communities. And they and their children are often the ones that need the most help of all. But in general, child poverty has declined in Canada because we give usually a minimum, depending on how much you make, of $300, $400, $500 a month, depending on your family income. And it's a good policy. And this would be popular because it's a basic sort of universal income for families. It will help those that need it most. And yeah, the price tag is high, but my goodness, guys, if I could tell you right now, for $120 billion, a country the size of the US, that's pennies. For $120 billion, you could cut child poverty in half. And think, even people that remain poor, they'll be significantly less poor. This is a good policy. And I think that the Democrats really do need to fight for this and really ensure that it gets in the package, at least in some form. Quibble over the details. How much money? When's the cutoff? Should there be more for really young children and less for older children? I don't know. It is a good policy. Now, one caveat I have to add is here in Canada, it's sort of been used as an argument to cut down universal childcare. Liberals and conservatives in Canada, as opposed to the left, as opposed to democratic socialists, social democrats, they've suggested that we don't need universal childcare as much anymore because we just give everyone $300, $400, $500 a month or whatever, and they can choose to spend that on childcare if they want to. And here in Canada, childcare, school before, K to 12, you have to pay for it. And it can be very, very expensive. Easily, $1,200 a month is basically what we pay, in this household. And we don't even pay a particularly high amount compared to a lot of other people. So it's not a replacement for childcare. It's not like you get this and you give up, preschool education being publicly available to everyone at no or at very little cost. But if you want a deeply, deeply simple policy that people will understand, and that's a lot easier to get and to utilize than any sort of tax credit, this is it. So I really hope Joe Biden gets this done. Because this would be one quick thing he could do now and in the future to reduce child poverty. And if you believe even that inequality is okay, and even if you believe that, in capitalism, inequality is okay, if you want opportunity, if you believe in a society that everyone should have opportunity, at the very least, you should strive to end childhood poverty. Because as long as children are poor, they'll never have a chance to achieve their full potential and have their chance to access that supposedly equal opportunity. So I am excited for this. I hope it gets done. Apparently, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, the new incoming Democratic chairman, has said he supports this, and I know that progressives will support it as well. I am excited. I hope that American families can get what my wife has, and I have, and lots of Canadians have. It'll make for a better society.